the best coach possible. I think the best coach in the NBA, frankly, and certainly the best coach for the Clippers at this stage of the game. So I'm excited about where we are.
Oh, Steve Ballmer, welcome to The Jump. I'm George Sedano, in for our fearless leader, Rachel Nichols. Today, I'm joined by our 2008 NBA champ and NBA analyst, Kendrick Perkins, and, of course, our NBA insider, New York Times bestseller, Brian Windhorst. You just heard Steve Ballmer call his new coach, Ty Lue, the best in the NBA. And coming up, on the day the Clippers officially introduced Lue, what is the biggest obstacle he faces as their head coach? We'll discuss all that in a bit. But first, breaking news here on The Jump. According to our agent Wojnarowski and Andrew Lopez, the Pelicans have hired Stan Van Gundy to be their next head coach. Van Gundy has coached 11-plus seasons with the Heat, Magic, and Pistons, and now faces the task of coaching Zion Williamson down in New Orleans. So, Perk, what's your reaction to this hire?
Well, I'm a big fan of Stan Van Gundy. Do I love the hire? No, but I do like the hire, and here's why. I believe that Stan Van Gundy is a true definition of culture, and that's what these young guys need. I watched what Stan did for Dwight Howard when he first got to the Orlando Magic. Dwight Howard had some of his best years. He was a guy that was a public icon figure at the time, and this is the same situation with Zion Williamson. I think that Stan will be the best, would do right by him, put him in position to be successful. Will the Pelicans contend for a title? I don't believe so, but I do believe that this is a nice starting point to develop culture and foundation.
George, this is such an important hire. With where Zion Williamson is and this organization is, they really needed an experienced, steadying hand. David Griffin really wanted to hire Ty Lue, but Ty Lue was in demand, and when the Clippers job came open, he just wasn't going to leave that opportunity to go to New Orleans. Right after that was Stan Van Gundy, and to be honest with you, after Stan, it was a lot of guys who would be first-time head coaches. So David Griffin had to execute this hire. From what I am told, he actually offered him the job over the weekend, and it took several days of negotiating not only the contract, but how everything would work with his staff to get Stan comfortable with taking it. And J.J. Redick, I have been told, played a big role here. J.J. played for him in New Orleans, was a big part of the background and recruiting process. And so I don't know if it's going to work out, but I know that Stan Van Gundy is an excellent coach, and I suspect the Pelicans will get better with this hire.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Stan, as everyone is here, certainly. And Brian, I want to get to the Zion stuff specifically in a second. But Perk, you said you liked it but didn't love it. Is there a specific reason why you don't necessarily love it?
Well, here's why. I thought that they were going to go younger. I thought a former player in that position, especially with that young nucleus that they have, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo Ball. I thought that they needed to bring a guy in there that was going to be able to have a great positive impact on Lonzo Ball. I thought a guy like maybe Mark Jackson, a guy like Jay Kidd that played the point guard position. If you look at what Mark Jackson did for the foundation and the culture and what he did for Steph Curry, he took the Golden State Warriors from being irrelevant to being relevant, and then Steve Kerr came on in. If you look at what Jay Kidd did for Giannis in Milwaukee when he got there, he helped Giannis' game tremendously. And I thought that those two guys could have a real positive impact on Lonzo Ball, and that will take the Pelicans to new heights.
And Brian,
Perk, I don't think you're wrong in saying, I don't think Perk is wrong in saying that. I just think that Perk, there's just no room for gambling here. And Mark Jackson and Jason Kidd's resumes are a little shaky compared to Stan Van Gundy's. And so it may not end up working out, but this was the safest bet that they could make on a guy who they feel can get this turned in the right direction. Because to be honest with you, with a young player, even going into his second year, it gets late fast. This hire was so valuable, so important.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brian, in that regard. And I'm not trying to disparage Mark or Jason Kidd. I do think both guys deserve another opportunity. I don't think there's any question about that. But you know what you've got in Stan Van Gundy, and a guy who brings defense to the table. 8 out of his 10 seasons that he's coached previously, they've been a top defensive team, and we'll get into that aspect of it in a little bit too. And again, he's coached to an NBA Finals before, on an NBA Finals team in the Eastern Conference with Dwight Howard. But Brian, the Zion part of it, as you kind of alluded to, is so important. How much did that factor into this specific equation, and what do you expect from this particular relationship?
Well, Stan Van Gundy is not a guy who plays favorites or panders to players. He's a guy who is not afraid to get into his players' faces, not afraid to have friction. This is not going to be a relationship to make Zion Williamson comfortable and happy. It's going to be a relationship made to push Zion. And one of the things that needs to happen is Zion needs to bond with the organization. I'm not so sure how well it happened in the first year there. There's a little bit of a distance there. And I don't know if Stan's the perfect choice, but Stan definitely will elevate their level of play, and it's probably the type of disciplinarian that Zion could use.
Perk, let me
Brian, that goes back to my point that this is,
right.
I don't strongly believe that's what Zion need at this point in time in his career. He don't need a guy that's going to jump into his face. He need a guy that's going to be able to guide him on and off the court. And that's why I said a player coach, a guy that played in the league, will be the best fit for Zion so he could show him the ropes, not only on the court, but off the court. Accountability is one thing. X's and O's are another thing. But being able to relate, that's a whole different thing. This is not back in the day. This is a new era. This is a new generation of players, and you have to find ways to relate to get the best out of them so that, 1, they could trust you, 2, that they're going to go to war for you, and 3, that they know that you have their best interests in heart.
But Perk, let me ask you this. How do you establish that culture and also, try to relate? Like, I think that's a hard line to toe in some situations.
What? Well, this is a prime example of what just happened with the Los Angeles Clippers. This is why this is why the Clippers team, not just the front office, not just Steve Ballmer, not just Lawrence Frank and Jerry West.
Because he was also the president and making personnel decisions. How much better do you think Stan can be this go around because he doesn't have that stuff on his plate?
The Orlando Magic got better when Stan became their coach. The Detroit Pistons got better when Stan became their coach. Not because of the moves he made with the front office, because they're coach. I have no doubt that the New Orleans Pelicans will get better with Stan as their coach. Will he reach Zion? Will it be enough? That's what we're going to watch and find out.
Perk, defensively, they were ranked, I believe, 21st this season. Stan, as I alluded to earlier, is an excellent defensive coach. Historically, that's always been the case wherever he's been. What do you need to see from them defensively?
Well, first it's the effort. And then second, they have to be healthy. You're looking at this Pelican team from this past season, they wasn't healthy majority